All right, everyone, so our cage is finished and it looks just awful. Sometimes what we do, like when we start a cage, Max just decides to do this nonsense and really does a bad job. So what it's trying to do, it analyzed the two meshes, it tried to figure out how far to push the low poly to make sure that the high poly is encapsulated. But sometimes it doesn't know what you want to encapsulate, so it might just say, start pushing these things. None of it makes sense. I can't even explain it. But really, I mean, we don't really need this this nonsense. So what you're going to do is, with your low poly selected, go into the Modify panel. Under your projection, there's a little section called Cage. You click on that, and you don't actually have to click on that. You can stay under projection. But over here, there's a little section called Cage. And right on the bottom here, you have a reset button. So if you click that, oh, you might have to get out of this. If you click that, it'll reset your cage for you. And now it's going to be one-to-one to your low poly. And what you're going to want to do is use this little amount section here, and you can push out your low poly, your cage. You don't want to do it too much. You'll start seeing things kind of going through. So if I do it this far, my wires here will start trying to capture this area here. This handle is going to start like intersecting in itself. So you definitely don't want that. So reset it and just push it a little bit. Really, all you want is just enough for it to capture some of the details around here. We'll see how it works out with some of this stuff, if it actually catches it or not. Like I said, these guys I probably should have built low polys for. This I kind of left intentionally without anything, just so we can kind of see what it's going to do. But that's pretty good. I mean, you could, again, push it and pull it as far as you feel you need to. Sometimes you might have to do some trial and error kind of stuff, but it should be pretty good as is. And that's pretty much it for the cage. If you really don't like what it kind of did in certain sections, you can click on the cage here, and all of these guys will get turned into vertices. And you can go through and actually move these guys around. So if you if you don't like some of the things that it's doing, you can go ahead and try and adjust it kind of bit by bit. So if you're like, yeah, you know what, this cage I don't really like, so I'm gonna go ahead and push it. So you could do that. You could also use your element and convert, and you can just be like, hey, you know what, I want this whole cage out here for some reason, which you don't, but you do have the ability to adjust the cage bit by bit. Sometimes Max will just do really weird stuff and will not look the way you want it to look there. So, so that's kind of that. And then with that selected, you can use the push amount. So let's say, for instance, we had these wires here. Now, obviously, selecting them vert by vert is going to be a big pain in the butt. So we could go to our element select, select them all, and then holding Control, I can click on my verts to convert my selection to vertices. And then I could use this push to get these guys a lot lower, because these guys could be pretty tight. The rest of them could be a little bit more beefy. So it all kind of depends on the area and on the shape and stuff like that. So you go through here and adjust each of these guys as you see fit. Just we'll push him a little bit. Anyways, for the most part, it should be fine. So that's pretty much it for the cage. So we're all done and set up on that. So let's take a look at where we are. So we have our, let me get out of this. We have our low poly. We have our high poly. They're both in the exact same area. They are nicely covering each other. I've applied a bunch of materials to my high poly, and I've added a render to texture, and I've set all that up. Oh, hold on, my autosave. Let me just cancel that autosave out. Yeah, that's fine. All right, and we've set up our rendering environment, so let's take a look at that again, just as a little refresher. I went and I added a standard light skylight, just placed it in the scene, and I've turned on cast shadows. I've selected my low poly, right-clicked on it, went to object properties, and turned off cast shadows on here. So cast shadows on for light, off for the low poly. I've gone into my render setup here with its little teapot with the gear. I've went to advanced lighting. I set radiosity or light tracer. I always forget which one I use. Let's just stick with radiosity. I'm pretty sure it's radiosity. Then I've gone into my renderer and I could set my filter to whatever I want. So I could set it to Catmull ROM. If I really want a high resolution craziness, I could put on enable super sampling. Put on Hammersley works quite well. You don't have to have that on. That's kind of up to you. And that's pretty much it in here, unless I'm missing something. I think that should be good. Next lighting, render. Yep, very good. Cool, now we can render our stuff. So this is the render to texture dialog here. We're going to be rendering out a few maps. So before we get to the map part, I'm going to talk a little bit about this projection modifier here. If you go into options, you'll get this little dialog that pops up. And the only thing you really need to worry about is Ramus check and Ramus color, and we'll talk about that once we have a bake. But I want to show you guys where this is, just so you know for the future when we're talking about it. If you scroll down here, I've already added a few textures, but I could remove these guys. This is where you add the type of textures that you want to bake out of your mesh here. So click on Add. And we're going to do 3. We're going to do a diffuse map, which is going to bake out the colors that we've set, all those material colors. We're going to do a lighting map, which will get all this lighting information from the skylight. And we will do a normals map, which will capture all the nice normal map details that we want from our high poly mesh. Now, each of these guys is going to have their own settings. So number 1, you can see the size. It's all on 256. So we can go ahead and over here increase the size of each of these guys one by one. If you wanted different resolutions for things, you can for some reason. Oh, I can't make this go wider. That's silly. Alright, cool. So we have that. In here, you get to do file name and outputs. You get to decide where these things bake out to. I'm just going to bake them out to the images folder in 3D Max for now. I don't really care. Now I'm baking out a fairly small one. Like this is a really big and detailed mesh, but I'm baking out a fairly small texture just to just for testing purposes, because this part does take a while. So I'm, again, for testing, you don't want anything too bananas. But once you're done, you can click, whatever, type in your own resolution that you'd like. And that's pretty much all you have to do for these guys. It may ask you, this one here has a target map slot as specular. You can just leave that blank. You can put in what you want. I don't set up materials in Max, really, so it doesn't really matter. It will give you a warning, but just ignore it. Anyways, so that's what we have. And once you have that set up, you can hit render. It will say, hey, you don't have target map slots for this. And you'll be like, I don't care. Hit continue. And then you will get this nice render window pop up. It popped up on my other monitor. Now, this part will take quite a while, especially with higher detailed meshes and things like that. So I'll stop the video in a second. We'll come back once these guys are done. And then we'll kind of talk about what each map did and how to kind of view it, okay? So that'll be it for now, and then we'll come back in a moment.